Welcome back to the Virtual Antics podcast. I am so excited because today I have Annie Delre with me, and she is an amazing nationally board certified health and wellness coach who has worked with hundreds of clients to help them achieve a life of confidence, wellness, and success. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you. Welcome. I feel welcomed to be here. Woo!
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about who you are and how you got started.
Sure. So I'm from Jersey. I now live in California. Very different.
Yeah.
But I got started my career in Jersey, and by that I mean working a ton of jobs while in school, like trying to make it, trying to make it by, you know what I mean? Um, and that's where I studied psychology. That's the whole reason I bring that up. I was studying psychology there and just learning about the human mind. And I feel like that's where it all started, just trying to understand, like, what is human behavior? Why do we think this way? Why does it not matter how much money you have or how little money you have and you can still suffer from addiction? Just like, I had a lot of questions, and studying psych really helped with that. So I would say I hope that was the original question of like, how did it start?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
You're good. No, that's really cool because you should always know, like the background of why someone got into something because it's always usually a really
Mhm.
amazing story. And you having those questions and wanting to know more, I think is really a natural thing, especially in our 20s, right? So that's awesome. And so how do you become a wellness coach?
So I didn't really know coaching was a thing, or if I did, it was like an eye roll, like life coach, haha, like this is a BS thing. So I was like, I guess I'll do therapy, but I don't really want to do therapy. Because I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. Like I already grew up around trauma. So I was like, I love therapy. I have a therapist, but I don't want to do this. So what am I going to do? And people were like, well, you can go into research. Well, I don't want to go into research. Like, that doesn't sound fun either. And then I learned about coaching, and I learned that there was different areas of coaching. And I learned that there was like reputable degrees in it or certifications. And I guess the best way I can describe it is the difference between coaching and therapy. So if that's okay, I'll take a
Yeah,
second to discuss. Okay.
tell me,
Um,
go ahead.
Awesome. So therapy, what therapy is doing is coping in the present, really trying to allow you to like um, survive in the present. I wouldn't even use the word thrive, really. And what you're doing is you're spending a lot of time in the past because you're processing things that happened to you. You're talking it out. It may be the first time you're acknowledging it, and but spending time in the past, as opposed to coaching, where we are talking about the present and how you're coping. All we care about is the future. We will spend limited time in the past. Um, and that's why they're two separate fields, right? I think therapy is a beautiful thing and definitely plays a role in people's parts of their journey. Woo! But coaching is another side of it. Those are the next steps. So when I learned that that was something and that there was a population specifically for that, I was like, all right, that's what I want to do.
That's awesome. How long have you been doing that?
Um, I graduated with my master's in 2020 for integrative wellness coaching. So, like, technically 3 years of under training, under like specifically being trained for it. Yeah, I'd say 3 years.
Awesome. And what type of people do you help, or do they have any similarities?
Mm. Um, well, I working for other mental health companies, I've worked with men and women, but for like my private practice, I market to women. Um, and I've worked with people for in their teens, and my eldest client was 84 years old. Cute, cute as could be. Which just shows like at any age you can set goals and, find your layer of happiness.
Oh, that's so cool. So I know that a lot of wellness coaches, especially within psychology, usually they focus on like a set of issues. Do you kind of just focus on the
Mhm.
overall happiness, or do you have a certain sector that you coach in?
So Great question, by the way. Loving this question. And um, I guess there's two parts to that. So
Okay.
one is now as a business grows, like I'm sure you know, as a businesswoman, um, they tell you to niche down, like as niche as you could possibly be, because it's hard to serve everyone. Like if that makes sense. So, or people want to know you specialize in something, right? Like to know a little bit about everything is fantastic, but also if you have a specific problem, you'd like someone who specializes. Anyway, all of that to say, stress management in general is just a huge one. And a lot of that is about time management. And because of their lack of time management, they're stressed. So it's like a double edged sword. It's ping ponging back. And I would say also another one is confidence in general.
Yeah, that's me. That's me.
Okay.
I
Okay.
was like, yeah, you're just talking to me now. I was like, oh man, I have a 5 and a 6-year-old. I have 2 businesses plus a podcast and a million other things. And then I have a husband in law enforcement. And I know most entrepreneurs, especially my listeners, we are all stressed the heck out. And so, yeah, it's usually
Yeah.
a time management thing.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I was so down to learn about it and pay a ton of money to learn about it, because it I don't want this to sound as if I'm not excited for men. But what I am here on this earth to do is empower women and allow us to be as successful as possible. Again, not anti-men. I've coached probably like 600 people now, and at least 300 were men, or like
Yeah.
200 were men. So I really don't want it to sound like I'm like, screw the men, only the women should rise. What I mean is they're great, fantastic, okay. What I'm really focusing on though is women's success and their achievement. And um, this is sassy, but like ideally making more money than their partners. Like women
Yeah.
just that are like killing the game.
Yeah. I send these little clips to my staff all the time. My staff is they're women. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have any men at the moment. I'm open to it, but I help moms make money from home. So that's one the way I do it, by hiring women. And so I sent them this clip, and it was like a woman talking about how, all men have always been at the higher positions in corporate world and even now in politics, and how behind every single man is a woman organizing things or
Exactly.
working it, or or taking care of everything for them. I know my husband, he's very successful in his career. He's about to be assistant warden at a prison. And so he's been one of the youngest wardens ever by the time he gets warden, which is super cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
he's
Yes.
early 30s. So yeah, it's insane. Usually when you're assistant warden, to put it in hindsight, is that you're usually in your 50s to 60s. Yeah.
This is
So
so exciting.
but I know for a fact he would not be there without me, getting all his dry cleaning done, or helping him with his leadership questions, or helping him get through these certain things, and vice versa. I wouldn't have 2 businesses if I didn't have an amazing husband. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that is really important. And another side note on that is that your target market. So your target market is women. And a lot of people don't realize, doesn't mean you only accept women. It just means that that's the
Right.
ones you're speaking to, and your branding, your marketing. Those are the ones you're trying to talk to. Now, that's like us. We most of my clients are women entrepreneurs, and that's who we speak to. But I
Mm-hmm.
have guy clients, and that's okay, because they
Yes.
see how they see our value, and usually those are my best clients because they push through all the girly stuff, like our website's girly, and they're like, oh, they have skill, they're really good, I want them. And yeah, so I love
Yes, I totally get that. It's not that you like the guys more, because it's not
it.
that, but like you really appreciate them putting themselves out there, working with a woman, knowing that, yeah, like you're not their target audience. That's
Yeah.
super cool to make yourself available like that. Yeah. Especially because some of these guys, like, it's their first time asking for help. And
True.
that's a big deal too. That you're like admitting it to a woman, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely takes some vulnerability. So that's awesome. I really like that that's what you're doing. And I think it's definitely, especially after the pandemic, we all need we need some sort of help or coach. And I love that the coach is more like the hands-on approach and like really giving you those steps and laying it all out there for you, because I feel like in therapy we're trying to figure it out. We're talking about it and they can give us only so much guidance, but a coach is the one that really pushes you through each level and breaks it down and says, this is the way you
Mm.
go, right?
This, I mean, you could talk about things till you're blue in the face in therapy, but if you leave a session with me and most coaches, you're having action steps. And then I'm asking you about those action steps next time. And if you have a challenge, we're talking about it in that moment and addressing it before we get off the phone. Like, it is only forward movement, ideally. And if there was none, that's when you take a second to be like, well, let's talk about what's the deeper issue. And it potentially may be that therapy is needed, or it's just a roadblock. No, no one knew COVID was going to happen, and no one wrote a book about it. Like, in the beginning, I should say. So do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, there was no guidance. So people were freaking out. People who were slightly stressed to begin with were now exasperated and like unable to cope. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't do coaching, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%, because we did see that, I think the whole country was just like, just trying to find their way, unless you lived in
Mm.
Florida like I do. Because not
Oh,
much changed in Florida, I will say. There was a little changes, but probably had it really easy. But my mom actually moved to Florida right when that week that the pandemic was shutting down across the United States.
oh,
And my husband drove her down, and they were going state to state, and they went to a McDonald's to use the restroom, and McDonald's was like, I'm sorry, but they're about to announce the closing of the state in like 5 minutes. Like, you guys can't stop here. You can't use the bathroom. And they're like, well, they haven't they haven't closed it yet. So let us keep
oh,
and hop
totally. If
out.
there's a few minutes, yeah.
So they were like literally, because that's a 24-hour car ride. So they were driving from state to state, and I'm so thankful that she got here when she did, and that she was able to be here for the pandemic. But it was definitely so many, mental illnesses came. I feel like a lot of people ended up diagnosed with a lot of mental illnesses, and then or they had a mental illness and then got worse, because
Yeah.
a nationwide pandemic that no one has seen in a very, very long time. Nothing quite like it. So,
Right. Right. There wasn't a thing that was like what moms should do during a pandemic.
yeah.
It In the beginning it was mass chaos. And
Yeah.
and that's what I graduated to. So I graduated May 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and COVID shut down. I think like the real shutdowns happened around March. So like I
Oh,
was graduating into a world of people being like, "What is going on?"
yeah. It's crazy. My kids were little, so I had like a 2 and a 3-year-old when the pandemic hit. And so every cough, I think I was so hyper aware of my children. I was like, oh, you're coughing. Oh, are you sick? We, knocking on all the wood in my house, never got COVID. I don't know how we did that, especially in
Yeah.
Florida. My husband still had to go work every day. We did survive without that, but man, I had so much anxiety. And then I had like a stepfather that's in his 80s and worried about him. And then we had the vaccine. So I definitely, did you see an increase, especially with your clients, like that they've been affected by the pandemic?
Oh, it was absolute insanity. It was truly absolute insanity. And I graduated and started working for a mental health company, and the
Mhm.
mental health company worked with three diagnoses. So it was anxiety, depression, and insomnia. So
Wow.
how many people do you think were getting diagnosed during that time for those things? It was insanity. And there was people who our goals together was getting out of bed every day, and I'm
Yeah.
not joking. Like, that was the goal for them, to get out of bed every day. Some were to shower twice a week.
Hmm.
Some were to brush their teeth, because truly, like, their world was rocked,
Yeah.
and a lot lost their jobs or simply couldn't go to work. So and these were people who were like high functioning before, but
Yeah.
before something like that hit, because no one knew what was going on, and there was a lot of fear and just like anxiety, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was absolutely insane. And I'm very glad that it's over. But I mean, people are
Yeah.
still getting COVID, of course, but we're no longer shut down and that we can start our healing journey. So that's awesome that you're able to help, and really help people just progress through life, because I think we get stuck sometimes. Like you said, we don't want to get out of
Uh,
bed, or we don't want to do X, Y, Z. And so we really need someone that is going to show us the next steps, but also keep us accountable, because that's like the biggest part is we need
yes.
someone to keep us accountable because we're no longer able to.
That is like 100% it. It's accountability and paid accountability. And I
Yeah.
don't mean that as in like come work with me and pay me. What I mean is it's a bit different than family and friends,
Mhm.
because family and friends can forget. They don't
Yeah.
have it on the line as much as you do. It's just the truth. Your family and friends love you. It's not that they don't love you, but if it's your goal, it should matter the most to you.
Yeah.
So working with a coach, or I don't even know, like maybe even, I wouldn't even say pay family and friends because that can get challenging.
Yeah.
But having someone that you signed up to be that person's accountability partner. That person's checking in on you whether you did it or not. And they're
Yeah.
not going to cut you slack. They're not a family or friend. They're not going to make excuses for you. They're going to ask questions that family and friends don't really want to ask you or even know to, and questions that you're probably not ready to ask yourself. And that's
Yeah.
okay, right? That's why there are different careers to help people on their journey.
Yeah. And that's another thing is like, so I own a marketing agency. And so one of the things that I've researched and know of is that when you actually put your own money and you purchase something, you're more likely to do it than say like
Mm,
something that's free. And because you have a stake in it now, you have a financial stake in it. And so you're more likely to do it. So if you really want to get help,
totally.
put your money where your mouth is like the perfect expression for it, because you're more likely to do it. That's one way to keep yourself accountable.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
It's 100% true. And I know there's a study about it, but, and I guess this is just like my limited mindset holding me back. But I hate for people to think that means that I'm trying to convince them to pay for me. I'm literally just trying to teach them, like, in the long run, you're doing yourself a favor by putting money up because you're
Yeah.
investing in your future. That's what
Yeah.
you have to look at this as. Because I've given I've given like 6 week programs out to people,
Mhm.
um, to like friends. I wouldn't so much do it for family because it's hard to coach family like
Yeah.
in a
I don't
structured
work for my
way.
family either. So
Yeah, it's just doesn't work. Like maybe a quick coaching session where they don't know they're getting coached and I'm just talking, but what the hell am I trying or heck am I trying to say? Oh, those kind of programs,
Mhm.
and people don't show up or they cancel last minute or they don't value it. Where someone who has paid shows up, they do the homework, they
Yeah.
ask questions, they're great clients because they invested in themselves.
Yeah. 100%. That's awesome. So where can we find you?
Um, Probably, I mean, my website is the easiest place to find me. I am on LinkedIn and Facebook, but I would say going right to my site.
Awesome. What's your site?
It's anniedelre.com. So
Awesome.
Annie Delre.com. Oh, okay. You got
I'll
it.
put in the show notes too. I just
Right.
always like to say that out loud in case, someone has trouble with dyslexia or anything like that. Just always say it out loud as well. My daughter has dyslexia, so I'm learning all sorts of new things. It's very
I love
interesting.
that.
Yeah. So awesome. Okay, cool. So I am so happy that you were able to come today and share us all these amazing things, especially when it comes to mental health, which is so, so important. And we will talk to you guys next time.